cases SBA loans, and there's different types out there. The fastest one that usually can most businesses can take advantage of is for loans less than $350,000, and that's the SBA Express loan. So again, I encourage you to reach out to your bank and to talk to them about that if that's an option for you. The trust company, and I can't speak to other banks on this, will be putting out a loan program. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. Check back on our website for that, but there will be a COVID loan program that we'll be putting out probably sometime later next week. We are doing a deferral. Again, I will reiterate, most banks are doing a deferral for 60 or 90 days. That applies not only to commercial loans, but also to consumer loans and residential mortgages. So definitely reach out to the bank and talk to them about that. In terms of other programs that are out there, I don't have firm details on them yet. Again, lots of things being talked about, but I would just stay on the website for the chamber. They're staying up to speed on these things, as is TCAD. They've been able to keep up and send out newsletters that apply to a lot of theirs as well. That's about what I have, Jennifer.
Great, thanks, Karen. You've certainly covered a lot of what we were hoping. Thanks for referencing too that, you know, the chamber has been emailing not quite every day, but almost every day. Things last week were moving really, really quickly. And so every day there were changes that were substantial enough that we felt the need to share them again, particularly pertaining to operations. But obviously there have also been other changes around, you know, these new lending options. We're trying to catalog them all on our website. So if you're not sure what those resources are, you can find them under the Financial Resources tab on the Chamber's COVID-19 resources page. We also are including any support from local lenders that they're sharing with us specifically. So again, while Karen mentioned many are happy to consider deferments, some have also reached out to us with specific, you know, overtures to be helpful. And so we're trying to make note of anything like that that comes our way as well. I'm not seeing any other questions right now for Karen coming in through the chat. So if everyone's okay, I think we'll move on, and then we can certainly come back to any other sort of money questions or lending questions. Someone's jumping in. Did someone?
Oh, Jennifer, I think that's me. This is Natalie.
Oh, okay, great, perfect, Natalie. So for anyone who hasn't had a chance to meet Natalie Branosky yet, she is the new Workforce Development Director. She hasn't even had a chance to have a board orientation or go to a single board meeting with us yet, but here I am putting her to work. So thanks for making some time for us, Natalie. And I know that you have been really inundated both in your office with a lot of questions, and also folks might not realize that the Workforce Development Board and you as the director also oversee all of the operations of the Workforce New York office and all of those subsidiary services and grant programs like the youth summer employment programs and some of those other wonderful programs in the community as well. So I was hoping you could talk with us a little bit about just things employers should be thinking about, options that they have, ways that they can support their employees during obviously what's a really unprecedented, complex environment for all of us.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Branosky, and I just want to say thank you to Jennifer for bringing all of us together today. I think that it became very clear to us around Monday last week that the workforce system in Tompkins County was going to become just as important as health services. And so like you, we've been in the process of interpreting executive orders on a daily basis. 25% work from home on Wednesday, 50% on Thursday, and 100% by Friday. So in amongst all of that, we have been getting a lot of calls from employees, from businesses, and also at the same time, we've been having to think through our public service. So at Ithaca Commons, we have a career center that was very concerned of the health of our own career advisory staff and wanting to serve the public and walk-ins and continue with meetings at the same time. So as we've been navigating all of that, I definitely want to share with you some of the resources that are available as you're making decisions as businesses and employers. The first is that New York State has something called a rapid response team. And if you are going through the calculation of deciding about layoffs and how you can organize your staff, you know, some of you are able to carry out operations at home. Some jobs have to be done on site. And there's a very good team that can help with some advice on this. They're called the Rapid Response Team. And I'm going to share names and numbers, if that's okay, Jennifer. The Rapid Response Team here in the Southern Tier is organized by Vicki Kaufman, Kaufman. Her phone number is 607-741-4518. Then you and your employees about regaining employment, about filing for uninsurance, and thinking about the next step. Now, the X factor in all of this is that we don't really know at this point in time how long the work from home executive order will be in place. But there are some ways to think about this and to plan your workforce. Tagged onto that is another really excellent program called the Shared Work Program. I encourage you to ask about this program. I know that the team is responding to companies within an hour. That phone number is 518-549-0496. And I know that Jennifer has all of these numbers on her website as well, on the Chamber website. But I do want to suggest that you try the Shared Work Program as a first stop before going to any full-scale layoff. And the reason why is because in the Shared Work Program, you as a company can apply to the New York State Department of Labor for a bulk unemployment insurance payment of your employees. At the same time, you have to show evidence that your full-time employees are now being moved to between 20 and 60% of their regular time hours and time wage. So this is a way to sort of keep your employees connected to their jobs, but also financially secure as you feel you have to reduce their hours. The other thing that I will say, and I'm sure that you've heard some of this feedback from employees, from friends, from neighbors, the unemployment insurance program here in New York State on Thursday experienced a 950% increase in claims. Not a typo. And this is a bigger jump than was experienced on 9/11. So as you can imagine, the entire state is trying to access this system. The advice is to encourage employees to apply online rather than on the phone. And they're also doing a scattered schedule. So Mondays are for people whose first letter of their last name is A through F. Tuesday is G through N. Wednesday is O through Z. Thursday and Friday are for people who may have missed their filing day. Another really big question that we're getting from everyone at the moment is what happens if I'm filing late? So the payment of your unemployment insurance claim is retroactive to your first day of layoff. And normally there's a 7-day waiting period. Here in New York State, that has been waived. So hopefully that provides a little bit of comfort. And Jennifer, I'm just going to conclude with one more important question that we've been receiving. I know the Chamber's been receiving this question as well. If you make the calculation that you have to go to layoff, I urge you to consider keeping the health insurance and any retirement plan that your employees are currently receiving. There are lots of reasons for this. The first is that our priority here in the county is to keep people as attached to their jobs as possible. What we don't want to see is people becoming inactive, which is an economic term, but we can all understand that we don't want people to be away from work for an extended period of time. We want to keep them active. We want to keep their skills as up to date as we can. And you as businesses have likely already invested in your workforce. We don't want you to lose that investment. We certainly don't want you to have to pay out to do mass hiring if your current employees decide to go elsewhere. And so really we're thinking about keeping employees loyal so that when we get through this really difficult time, your current employees can be called back to their jobs quickly, and that our workforce will remain nimble. I think those are the key priority points for me, Jennifer.
Hey, Natalie, this is David. Would you mind repeating those phone numbers and the contact locations that you had stated earlier? Someone had asked earlier if you could repeat those numbers, and I'll put them in the chat so people can see them visibly.
Oh, sure. So the first number, get my papers here. Yeah, the first number is actually for our Career Center. Now they're closed to the public, but they're taking calls and we'll get back to you within the hour, particularly if you're a business. The business services contact name is Cindy Sloan. The number is 607-272-7.
You broke up there for a second, Natalie. I have 607-272, and what was the rest?
7570.
Got it. And what was the second?
And
please?
if you are interested, yep. And if you're interested in the Rapid Response Program or the Shared Work Program, that number is 518-549-0496. And I would say that for both of these numbers, please be patient, wait for the whole greeting, and if you're asked to leave a message, do so. We understand that both groups are returning calls within the hour.
Natalie, I'm getting a specific question through the chat, whether you have any different recommendations for service businesses or restaurants. For instance, if those businesses already had to lay people off because they needed to make a decision, last week, for example, and those people are already signed up for unemployment benefits. Do you have any other recommendations or thoughts for folks that are in that position?
Well, the one thing that I think is a bit of innovation here in Tompkins County that you and I have already talked about, Jennifer, is the Ithaca virtual tip jar. So there is a virtual tip jar. I think you can access on Twitter at Ithaca tip jar, and service employees are signing up with their Venmo accounts, and you can pay them directly by tipping, which I think, keeps people in some cash flow, which is really exciting. Like you said, yes, service employees are eligible for unemployment insurance, and if they haven't yet, should definitely continue to access the system online.
Great. We have another question, which I should have said this maybe at the beginning, but one thing that I've been trying to advocate for with everyone that I get a chance to speak with at the state and federal level is that, you know, one of the biggest gaps in our programming is the lack of unemployment benefits or any real interim support for employers or small businesses during this time.
Yes.
Borrowing money or loans that might take a couple of months to get through the process for aren't necessarily things that are going to be reassuring and provide immediate cash to independent business owners so that they can make, you know, the best choices possible. So people are wondering if you have any thoughts or recommendations for the business owners themselves who might be in this position.
Well, I can certainly understand this. And I am daily monitoring all of the legislation that's going through Capitol Hill in DC. And we are staying in very close contact with the Department of Labor in Albany. I personally think, having been through, you know, owning a business myself, that things like, you know, payroll tax relief are going to take a very, very long time to trickle down to the storefront. So that's why I would encourage you to factor in things like unemployment insurance if you have to do any kind of calculus in terms of potentially laying off your staff. That might not provide a lot of comfort, but it is one tool that you can use. There are a lot of other changes that are going through Congress at the moment, like changes to police and other kinds of emergency payments geared toward employees, and we're monitoring that at the moment. So I can be sure you can get that information as soon as Congress votes, if they haven't already.
Yeah. I did have a rather promising call with Senator Schumer's office late last week. You know, I know his staff certainly understood the concern about the business owners themselves. We have an advocate in that office, being that they themselves are also business owners. You know, I'm hopeful that the final package will provide additional relief to the business owners themselves, in addition to the benefits that we know everyone's employees are going to need over the near, and even if it is the cash payments to most households in the country, that also will help business owners. You know, it's just that people need predictable income over the next 6 to 8 weeks, or maybe 12, and that will help inform decision making across the board. So we're certainly hopeful that we'll be seeing some more resources come along. I have a question that Phil Blackman would like to ask. So Phil, why don't you go ahead and jump in?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for doing this. I currently sit on the board at the State Theater. I'm actually a professor at Ithaca College, and I appreciate that you're in contact with Senator Schumer, and this is one thing that concerned me when I read all the feedback yesterday. So if they're gonna, if a lot of this package is tax credits, right, and providing tax credits to businesses that they can use in the future, that doesn't really help nonprofits. That if they certainly don't have any UBIT, they're not going to have any, you know, they have very little tax obligation. So when you speak to his office, can you maybe highlight that? I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, and just to be clear, we've been talking with Senator's office, Congressman Reed, also our state folks, and across the board, trying to share concerns for all of our sectors as appropriate. One of the things also, just so that everyone in the nonprofit sector does realize this, that the S1 vehicles should be available to nonprofit businesses as well. I know, again, that loans is, you know, loans are what they are, and that's not necessarily reassuring depending on the position that you sit in. And I think it's important to note too that there's a lot of local folks, everybody from city and county government to all of the local agencies, discussing and collaborating ways that we can mobilize funding and mobilize response locally as well. You know, we don't have all the answers yet. We may be able to respond more quickly than some of these other sources are going to be coming down from either the state or federal government. So just know that there are people collaborating and working on these things. And as soon as we have updates, we'll be getting those things out to everyone.
Thank you,
I
Jennifer.
want to shift gears now to the communications piece. Laurie Linn, who certainly has a lot of expertise in this area. Absolutely. I asked Laurie to join us so she could talk about both how people should be prioritizing their internal and their external communications, and understanding that the nature of our communications needs to be a little bit different. I don't know about everyone else, but I see everything across the board from, you know, really powerful messaging to some people who seem to think it's business as usual, and sort of some like real tone deaf emails coming to me that I kind of just am shocked that I'm getting, and I'm deleting them, sales pitches and the like. So I thought it was important, since we all have internal and external stakeholders to be communicating with, that we have someone with that expertise join us for a little bit. So Laurie, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about what you think folks should be prioritizing and any resources you would recommend for them, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you, David and Dom, for pulling this together in such short order. You've done a phenomenal job, and I also really think it's wonderful, the number of people who are joining us today, so thank you. And as Karen said, we're all in this together, and we're all going to support each other, and we're all going to get through this one way or another. I also want to applaud Tompkins Trust Company. From what I understand, they're one of the first financial institutions in all of New York State and Pennsylvania to put together a deferment program for commercial and also mortgages and consumer products. So congratulations, makes me very proud that you're in our community. And also, Natalie, I wanted to thank you. I've only met you 3 times, but each time you've been so unbelievably informative and full of education and knowledge, and I really look forward to continuing to work with you as well. So thank you very much. As Jennifer mentioned, obviously internal and external communications are not business as usual, and we really need to tailor our communications and our strategies, which are changing minute by minute, day by day, second by second, but by target audiences. So I thought I would break this up into internal communications and external communications. And I also just want to preference everything by saying that this is unprecedented. Communique has been through 3 recessions and 9/11, and the communications that we are now employing are very different than what we can look to the past as far as a best practice. And I think there's a lot of things we can pull from best practices from the past, but we also are living very much in the present. So as I just want to put that out there, that it's changing, and I'd be more than happy to be available to folks who want to email me or call me with specific questions outside of this meeting. So in regard to internal communications, what can you be doing? Obviously, keeping your staff informed and about policies and procedures is important. I would recommend that you put everything in writing if possible and discuss each aspect in person. That was prior to social distancing, but now by phone or FaceTime groups or Zoom. Send information and links in regard to up-to-the-minute details about the coronavirus, such as cdc.gov, Center for Disease and Control, Tompkins County Health Department, Tompkins County, New York.gov, and New York Health Department, which is health.york.gov. Also, the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce is doing a fantastic job, so make sure you pay attention to their emails and e-newsletters and anything posted on their website, as well as other service providers. I've been touching base with my staff at least once or twice a day. We have a call at 10 in the morning and at 4 in the afternoon to discuss project strategy and sharing of information in regard to project management. I must say it's been going really well, and my staff has not missed a beat. So I really appreciate their calmness and, in chaos, and also working tremendously hard to make sure our clients at Communique are getting what they need, and also making sure they're connecting with each other so that they don't feel as though they're working in a silo or alone. I also think it's really important to be transparent and collect as many concerns from your staff about how they're feeling about their employment, what options they have for unemployment, what restrictions there are, what stimulus monies are coming through, deferred payments, anything that we can do to help ease their mind, and also be, once again, transparent about what's happening not only within our own internal environment, but what we know from an external point of view. And then I agree with Natalie, retaining our workforce, in my opinion, is just so incredibly important. And I can't even imagine having everything fall out the way it's falling out now, and then have to build a new team and a new collective nexus of talent from scratch. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to try and avoid that. And I tell my staff all the time, most important, stay healthy, keep positive, and from my perspective as a business owner, lead by example. So I'm trying to do that every day since this crisis started to unfold. In regard to external communications, I think it's really important that you reach out to your clients and your vendors, if possible by phone or by email, to let them know if you're still in operation or the various levels of operation. And I would divide that into 2 layers. Obviously, your most valued clients, you should have personalized conversations with them and get a pulse about how they're doing and ask ways in which you can be helpful. And I've also told my staff that we may have to provide our expertise and services either for free or with some other deferred payment program, so that we can help our clients get through the crisis and get out on the other end of this. But unless we're having the conversations, we do really don't know what people need. And I know that the Chamber's through that qualitative or quantitative data, but I think we need qualitative data as well. Also, our clients who aren't in our fold every day, but we do business with, maybe once or twice a year, just making sure that we have our personal corporate websites up to date, and we're sending out messages on all our social media channels, so that even though we're not directly working with these clients day to day, they're aware of what products and services Communique is offering, or you are offering. And I also think it's really important to push out PR wherever you can, although it's hard to compete in this competitive environment for space with all the federal and state and regional and local PR being pushed out every day. So you may have to take it upon yourselves to call publishers or editors or reporters to get important PR out that affects small business or any one of your sectors that you do business with. And for those messages that really require quality control, and you want to make sure that you can cut it through as much clutter as possible, we're suggesting that our clients take out paid advertising from our CEOs or senior leadership to talk about services and resources that are being created or developed to support any clients or any other small businesses or sectors of business. And I think that's important. If it's a super urgent piece of content or dialogue that you really need to get out, then you're going to have to pay to get it out. Same as internal clients, just send as many trusted sources of links and information as possible, but also be mindful that you don't want to over clutter inboxes and you don't want to over communicate. You need to be, in my opinion, very direct, very transparent, and make sure that if there's other groups that can be communicating that information and are communicating that information and doing it really well, that we defer to those groups that are doing a great job at it and avoid any frustration that folks may be having as your clients or any colleagues or vendors to weed through all the over communication. And in regard to communicating to your customers and clients right now, what I've said to my staff is do what you do it better, exceed expectations, over deliver, provide top-notch customer service, be as accommodating as possible, and ask what they need. How can we help innovate, as Karen had talked about, it might be a great time to look at new products and services that not only address a lot of the that we have around this whole coronavirus, but also opportunities. If you become a little complacent, figure out ways in which you can do business in today's world and also into the future. And in regard to marketing or any kind of sales that you might be thinking about at this time and how you communicate that information, I personally think trying to sell at this point is a little disingenuous. And I too am getting emails like Jennifer of, different contractors that would like to partner up with us and secure business. I think if it doesn't feel right, or if it's not a good fit for communicating innovation in products, support, resources, and services, then you probably shouldn't be talking about it until things change. And once again, I just think it's really important you look at supply and demand. So you can't sell something people don't want, nor should you at any time, whether you're in a vibrant community or not. And then making sure, Jennifer had asked about coming across as tone deaf. And I just think, being ignorant and ignoring the mandates and not having your employees work from home and not listening to our governments and our leaders in our community is super irresponsible. So I really think being tone deaf is not something that one would want to employ, but there are some folks that are not taking this as seriously as they need to. And I think that's all I have at this point, and happy to entertain any questions.
Great, thank you, Laurie. I didn't see any particular questions come into the chat just this minute here, but I can't say enough how much I would have said. Certainly at the chamber, we took a big step back, and we knew that some of our typical activities and work program weren't going to be able to move forward business as usual. And so very much, I think, against her nature, Rasa, who's been doing an incredible job bringing in new members and checking in with folks about membership retention, we sort of hit pause on that. We want to be checking in with our members, and the timing for us was really difficult. We had to send our second quarter invoicing out when we still weren't sure how this was going to shape up, but we made sure to offer to our members that we understood if they needed special arrangements or if they couldn't pay us right now or some flexibility on us. So, again, everybody in this scenario across the board needs to be patient and understanding, and some of that goodwill that we're all building and supporting one another now hopefully will come back, all of us, in a few weeks, or hopefully no more than a month or two here when we can sort of move ahead. We'll certainly keep our eye out for any more questions for Laurie in the chat, and we can circle back at the end if there's any more questions. But now I want to move to Rachel. Rachel Hogancamp from Rasa Spa, and I asked her to just talk about workplace wellness in this really wonky circumstance that many of us are finding ourselves in, and really for all of us as leaders or business owners or nonprofit leaders, for your teams, whomever you have working and wherever you have them working, and then really also to remain good and supportive of, and maybe you have to temp with or lay off for a time period. So thoughts for us about how we can all take care of ourselves and our people during this really challenging time?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say hello to everybody. I'm so glad so many folks joined today. This is great. And thank you, of course, to Jennifer and David and Dominic for setting this up through the chamber. Thanks to everybody else who's sharing information. I would just toss in again, welcoming any questions that anybody has to any of us. And if you're noticing other people in the chat, if there's other people that you know that you think might have some information, just to toss that out as an option too, to pull other folks into the conversation. I think just to echo what everybody else has said, this clearly is an unprecedented time. I mean, I think we're all figuring out as we go. And I kind of wanted to start just sharing a few things with you all with a phrase that I've been sharing with my team a lot this week, which is an old Tibetan phrase, which just is, you can either say small or you can say short, but it's small moments many times. And so the idea of like doing everything we possibly can, especially as business owners, to find your own pause within this. I don't know about the rest of you, but there are certainly moments throughout the day that I just feel like it's getting on a train that's completely out of control, going in a direction that I don't really know where we're going, and having to get myself to a place of putting my feet on the ground and literally taking a breath. And I know that that's a message that a lot of the folks of us in the wellness community share all the time, but I gotta say, if no other time to use it, then use it now. It feels really important. And I think as we're thinking about it from an owner, top level manager perspective, that it just feels really important that as much as those of us that are in these leadership positions can do it for ourselves, it feels super important. Obviously, everybody wants to stay well and healthy and keep themselves protected from the virus, but I think also on a deeper level, it's how can we all just take care of ourselves as individuals and then think about the team as well, of course. This may seem really silly, but as we were talking about, I knew I was going to be having this conversation. I talked to my team, and one of the first things we came up with was sleep. I know for some of us, sleep is elusive anyway, but it seems like now more than ever, if you can find a way for yourself to get deep, deep rest and make sure that you're really nourishing yourself, because if your health slips for any reason, then obviously it's just diminished in terms of how we can care for all the other people that we need to try and keep in touch with and stay positive. And so I need to make sure that I'm at my best self as much as I can. And so I've been trying. I watched myself the other night. I was up until 1:30, 2 o'clock, as many of us have been. And I made a choice in that moment to just say, all right, I don't have a meeting first thing in the morning. I'm going to let myself sleep until my body wakes me up, which was still on the early side, but not, 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, just to give myself a little bit of extra sleep. I think as also as business owners, some folks have already talked about it. Karen had some great things to say, as did Natalie and Laurie, but any kind of financial forecasting that we can be doing for ourselves, I think is really a wellness factor. We want to keep our businesses whole. And so the more knowledge that I have about my own business and what's coming up, it just is this deeper reassurance. We're already getting surprised every day by what's outside of our control. And so it just seems to me that whatever we can do that we know is within our control, let's do the best that we possibly can. And I do think that that's part of what we're learning through this very, very hard, large lesson is there's so much that is out of our control, but what can we actually hold on to, and what can we really pay attention to and make sure that we're holding what is within my small realm, I guess is the way I would say that. I would add too that I think this is a part of wellness. If you're able to do it, can you actually reduce the amount of time paying attention to the news throughout the day? Can you at least give yourself a break? Like, all right, here are these hours of the day that I'm gonna turn it off, turn it down, go for a walk, whatever it is that you need to do, because I think that as our minds continue to stay so busy, it just continues that rush of feeling. And certainly on a wellness factor, I know deeply that the quieter that we can get, the more opportunities that we can have to actually take deep breaths. It really, truly does add to wellness of mind and body. So I would just encourage folks to do that if they can. And that includes spending time with loved ones and family. We're all isolated. Some folks are isolated really on their own right now. And so it's reaching out to those people as best you can. But if you're isolated with any partner, person, family member, anything like that, making sure we're setting aside time to connect with those folks every day. we're certainly struggling. I was the person who had the question about the service industry because we had to make the really incredibly difficult decision last Sunday to close the doors at Rasa, which then meant, since we are primarily a service business, we essentially laid off most of our staff. And that is just a heartbreak as a business owner that only those of us who are owning businesses and running businesses can understand, I think, at this moment. So we're just working really hard on trying to stay in touch with our folks. We haven't done it yet, but we're working on implementing some regular routines with our people. I think that it might have been Laurie who said that you're doing these regular check-ins with your team. We have about 60 people right now that are laid off, and there are 3 of us that are working regularly and 3 other people that are working part-time. And that's what we've got on our team out of the 67-person payroll we ran 2 weeks ago. So we're trying to set up times that everybody who wants to can actually meet regularly, which I think is good. Walking, moving your body. Again, some of these things are really basic, but I think let's not leave them out. You know, make sure that you as an individual and that you're sharing with your team, you know, go outside, get a breath of fresh air. How many minutes a day are you moving your body? If you're somebody who loves meditation, certainly in my life of 50 years, I haven't had a moment, anything like this, to say, let's make sure that I'm sitting for at least a few minutes a day to just really be quiet. Anybody who is personally connected to me knows that I took up photography of nature, and that's a meditation for me. So I try and make sure that I get out with my camera. Now I'm trying to do it at least once a week, if not twice a week, even if it's for an hour, to just do something that quiets my mind, quiets my nervous system. I'm not sure what you all are noticing, but within myself, I tend to have a pretty steady stream inside of me. And certainly right now, there's a whole lot of riding these waves. And I'm just finding whatever ways I can do a touch point in myself, and it's going to be different for all of us, is really important. But I think going back to that is great. And then I would say, obviously, we need to think about how we're staying in touch with our teams. We're using social media a lot, Instagram, Facebook. We're setting up different groups, ways to connect. We're using online resources. There's a lot of meditation sites out there. If you want me to, Jennifer, I'm happy to put together a list of some sites that we've been sharing with people about wellness that are in the larger sphere, that just are trusted sites to us, both that are giving things like meditation or yoga opportunities, but also other things, just simple things, recipes of things to cook, ways to take care of yourself from the inside out. I think we're just all looking for those opportunities. And because there's so much out there, if it would be helpful for me to put a small list together, I'm happy to do that and let you share it in whatever way that you want to. You know, Zoom is blowing up right now, right? So we are using that too. We actually just set up our own business account. We hadn't had one before. We used to always jump on other people's calls, but now we all have that. We're trying to do it within smaller groups. So if you have a business that has many employees, we're trying to set up these more manageable groups. So we've got 60 some people, but we're doing these pods. So we're trying to set it up where maybe we have 10 pods or 9 pods of like 6 or 7 people, and that there's one person that's holding that group. And then that one person is coming back to the individuals that are holding their own group and returning back to the center. We're a business that hasn't had like a large management team. So we're having to really figure out restructuring. And I will say, I think a couple other folks said this, but when I can get quiet, I'm actually really excited about the opportunities that are going to come out of this. I think the reinvention for all of us of our businesses, of how we do work together, how we really want to live our lives. You know, do we want to keep working 90-hour work weeks sometimes? Just figure out the best ways to stay healthy so that as a larger organism on the planet, as humanity, we can just keep going, because some of this hasn't felt sustainable. So I think any kind of buddy system you can do so you're checking in with your people, I would just encourage on the wellness front. And I think the last thing I just want to say is going back to the first thing I said, which is short or small moments many times. as much as you can kind of hold that idea of, I can't grab the whole thing right now. Like there's no way I can get my mind wrapped around all that's happening, but I can like focus on this small section. And I can take a moment to look at this photo that I love or talk to a friend or something, to make sure that I stay connected. You know, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the wellness industry coming out of this. It'll be really interesting to see what people need and want. So we're having to do a little reinventing of ourselves, but certainly, as always, I'm happy to have myself and or Rasa be any kind of resource. If we can help anybody, feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Rachel. We didn't see many questions come in while you were talking. I think you covered a lot, and I tried to sort of capture most of what you shared and put it right into the chat box as well. I just wanted to sort of acknowledge Dave Isles contributed, similar to what you have done at Rasa, that they've set up a buddy system for daily video chats with their team as well at Sharaba Walker. You know, a lot of what they do at Sharaba Walker already is relatively independent work, but I imagine it's at least feels slightly less so when you're in an office with a lot of other people. And so, you know, they're noticing that folks, especially who live alone and are now working remotely, need that extra support and connection. And I think that's probably true for so many of us, right? I mean, I'll say I have 2 kids and 2 dogs that I actually have not been seeing much of, even though I'm in the same house with them. I'm lucky that my kids can do their schooling and they're relatively autonomous, and I check in with them a few times a day. But it still is really wonderful to be able to connect with and work with by phone, by chat, by video. People that you're used to seeing every day, being able to get on video chat with them and see how they're doing. There really isn't any substitute for that. So I think those are really great recommendations for, you know, how we can all stay in touch and check in with one another. And that goes for the people that are still working or are working more than ever to get through this. And as Rachel and Natalie, and I think Laurie, everyone already has said, those people that aren't working right now, you know, they're going to need those check-ins and that support as well. So really wonderful contributions from everyone. Some good comments coming in on the chat here. I guess if anyone wants to ask a question live, you know, they could, you know, jump right in the chat and say so, or somehow raise their hand, or I just want to save a few minutes here for anyone who has any more questions for anyone that's in the group. Devin, I see your hand. Everyone's not on video, so I apologize. I won't be able to see everyone, but I did see you, Devin.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess this is a question for Natalie or anybody else who has thoughts on this. Just going back to the issue of unemployment and the shared work program, which I had read about also. We're kind of, you know, haven't had to lay anybody off, but are, you know, looking into the future and just trying to have a good sense of what our options are. And I'm just wondering if you have thoughts on like pros and cons of going with full unemployment versus shared work. I know it has to do with like just reducing hours versus having no hours, but if it's a matter of like, if there's a certain number of hours that you can spread across multiple people, or just give those hours to one person, you know, just thoughts on like how to structure that when thinking about those different options, I guess. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So yes, a lot of businesses of all sizes are asking this question right now. So the New York State Shared Work Program allows you to do a couple of things. First of all, the minimum amount of employees you need to have are 3. And in order for them to apply to be included in a shared work plan, they have to work 40 hours a week. Or they have to be full-time 40-hour-a-week employees when you start. So from that point onward, you can get very creative in terms of splitting an 8-hour week into 4 hours plus 4 hours amongst 2 employees. You can consider something like 1 day on a shift, 1 day off. So there are ways to sort of maximize your workforce across a smaller amount of hours. And for the number of hours that they've been reduced, unemployment insurance can then kick in if that employee is eligible. There's some kind of state requirement, I believe they will have had to have worked 40 quarters here in New York State. So the majority of your workforce should be eligible for that. If you are a business owner, I think that this is a real sort of immediate option for you if you're having to do some very tricky math at the moment. So I'd encourage you to think about that.
Okay, thank you. And then another question I had about unemployment was I had heard, because my husband's been going through it with his business also, and just that it's based off of the previous 2 weeks that you worked. So is it like wants to do it now when the previous 2 weeks would have been more work, where if you're guessing that your hours and work are going to do that earlier when you have more hours, versus if I do it 2 weeks from now and I won't have worked as many hours in the 2 weeks preceding that?
Yes, you are exactly right. Get in there now. Even if you apply today, according to the new rule here in New York State, that filing, even if you were to apply today, will apply to the first day you've been laid off. And yes, the calculation is based on the number of hours you worked in the previous 2 weeks.
Does that apply to the shared work program also, or just unemployment?
Those are the rules for unemployment. The shared work program is probably going to be the same. I don't want to say absolutely, but you know, the teams are in place to be able to answer these questions. So please do feel free to reach out. And like I said, I have talked to a number of businesses here in the county, and they are receiving a call back within an hour.
Great, thank you so much.
So you should get a prompt response.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm going to jump in because I got a question in the chat from someone about whether it's okay for someone to continue to work the business if they're unable to, completely shut down. So I was going to touch on this, the essential versus non-essential, and some of the guidance that's been coming down from Empire State Development. Well, first of all, it's important to note that it's the guidance is being updated almost every day because of the number of clarifying questions that continue to come into Empire State Development. So every day, the essential versus non-essential list changes a little bit. One thing that I have spent quite a bit of time talking with some state and Empire State Development officials about is the guidance about essential businesses. And there's one section on their website that talks about, and I'm going to try to actually paste the link to the guidance in the chat box if I can bring it back up. There's a page that talks about if there is only one person at the business that they can continue to operate. So at the bottom of the business employee has been deemed exempt and need not submit a request to be designated as an essential business. And I spent probably an hour on the phone talking with someone about this on Saturday because especially for people to by themselves walk into their place of business, keep the doors closed to the public, and do whatever it is that you do, especially during this time. They signaled to me that they were going to take this language down or adjust it because it was confusing people and it was implying that a lot more businesses could be open. In the FAQs, they have clarified that absolutely it's okay if someone needs to visit the business to perform functions. They can do that. Email if you need to press a few, etc. You can do that. I also interpret that to mean if you want to pack and ship orders to customers, or if you have the ability to somehow do some amount of business under these circumstances, unless someone says you can't do it, you need to, I want people to feel that they can continue doing that, because there are a lot of different businesses, big box, warehouse, and otherwise, that are allowed to continue taking orders and shipping them to people. So if you are a business that has the ability to sell products or services online, take orders and somehow make them available for pickup or delivery, those are functions that you should be able to continue doing. So at any rate, that just answers or helps clarify one of the questions that I was asked via chat. And I'm trying to figure out how to, here we go. I'm gonna make sure everyone has the link to the Essential Business Guidance on the website. So someone wants us to try again to address the question about how private business owners would continue to pay themselves when they can't access unemployment insurance. I'm not sure, what to tell you aside from that. We've been advocating very heavily for, you to be able to have access to those benefits, obviously for a number of reasons. I think all the things that Karen and others have already shared about ways to adjust your operations and to really analyze your absolutely necessary expenditures each month, and to avail yourself of all so that your bakers or your lands are willing to offer you would absolutely be critical. So if you have the option of taking a deferment, even if you're not sure if you need it, take it. Preserve your cash at all costs, which I think is what Karen said earlier. Do any of the other panel jump in with any other recommendations about what you would be doing if you were a business owner right now but not able to get unemployment support?
Jennifer, I can try to answer this along with some additional questions that are coming in. So for people who are doing, one-off jobs or are self-employed or in the 1099 category, or are engaging in what has become to be known as gig work, so patching different gigs together for an income. This is, I think, a real challenge and a gray area. And so I would recommend that you continue to contact the Career Center and ask them, what the recommendation is for unemployment insurance and perhaps some other benefits. These are the kinds of jobs that don't necessarily have a structured retirement plan or health insurance attached to them. And I really do think that these are the groups that are going to need extra support in the community at this time. But please do call the Career Center and ask about unemployment insurance and see if that and other programs are available to you.
Well, I just thought I'd basically just echo what you were saying, Jennifer, which is what I'm doing and trying to do is look at all of our recurring expenses and just see what's possible for us to actually reduce. so that if we're in this for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, who knows what this is going to look like, that we have enough cash on hand to then be able to open our doors when we're ready to open the doors. So we're working on that this week and next week, sort of. It's on the top level of things we're doing besides connecting to our staff members.
I wanted to just circle back to, because earlier someone brought up nonprofits, and I wanted to be sure that everyone is aware that both the United Way and also the Community Foundation have established funds to support both nonprofit organizations themselves, but also critical services that they provide to the community. So I don't know all the details of how the Community Foundation funds will be dispersed. I think they are just now beginning to accept grant applications. You know, obviously we all see there's a massive need and it's community-wide, and there's a lot of different types of organizations and businesses that will all need support. But I just wanted to be sure that folks were aware of those funds in the event they're in position to support them, or if you happen to be in position of needing to, you know, be aware that they are established and may be available to support your organization or other entities that you volunteer with in the community. So I see a question for Brett, or maybe it's a suggestion about you know, steps to recurring costs, turning down thermostats, shutting off equipment with compressors to reduce your utility expenses. Those are good bits of advice, Brett. Thanks for sharing that. Does anyone have any other sort of questions or pearls of wisdom that they want to share with the group? I guess quickly, while we're waiting to see if anything else comes in, if anyone needs help or technical assistance related to the essential business question, again, we've got these resources linked on our website. We're also sending them out in our emails. The FAQs are being updated daily by Empire State Development. I'm pretty sure most people are also aware of changes in requirements for tax filing dates and or payments at the state and federal level as well. So those changes were in our communication from today in the Chambergram. And you know, again, we'll be keeping all those things up to date on our website. Oh, David, can you please do a quick plug for the webinar that we have available tomorrow?
I sure can.
I'm going to paste a link to it in the chat.
Excellent. So tomorrow, from noon to 1, we are doing a collaboration with Cornell University, their law school, and the S.C. Johnson School of Business. We have an entire webinar series that we're kicking off tomorrow through our L.E.A.R.N series, focusing on resilience tomorrow. The topic of discussion will be food and beverage operations under COVID-19. We have lecturer Douglas Miller. He will be doing a webinar with Kimberly Bukowski from the Dairy Food Science Extension at Cornell, and Rob Rallier. He is a senior extension associate with the Department of Food Sciences at Cornell. So this is just a webinar talking about, it's more focused for people who work in the restaurant industry at any wineries or breweries that have been impacted by COVID-19. And they'll just give some insights, best practices for things that you can do to kind of get some relief during this time as we deal with this crisis. These guys are experts in the area, and we're going to be partnering with, well, collaborating with Cornell to offer more of these as they become available in the next couple of weeks, months. Because even when we begin to get a sense of normalcy back in our county and in our country, we definitely want to continue to provide any resources that we can to help our business partners. So tomorrow, Wednesday, March 25th, from 12 to 1, this is another event that the Chamber is offering at no cost, but we are asking people if you can make any donations to please feel free to do so. Any money contributed toward that, again, continues to help fund the work that we do for our members here in Tompkins County. And the link to join this through Zoom is on the registration page. We just ask that people register, and I'll be sending out emails tomorrow to remind people of this as well. And were you able to put up, yep, Jennifer just put the link in the chat
Great.
as well for you guys to mark your calendars.
Thank you so much. Any last words from any of our panelists? Karen, Laurie, Rachel, Natalie?
I think this has been a great panel. Everybody shared a lot of really great information. So thank you.
Yeah, same here. This is Rachel, just to say thank you for organizing. Thanks for everybody for being on the call. And I wanted to say, I didn't get to say it a second ago and forgot that, you know, I think we're all incredibly fortunate to be living in this community that we live in. You know, I believe that Ithaca is a special place and Tompkins County is a special place. And I've felt that for the 30 years I've lived here, but right now I see it even more and more. People really reaching out and wanting to help in any way that they can. And so just to express some gratitude and say that, because in particular, Rasa has often been a place for people to come to get some peace. We're going to continue to figure out ways to extend that as much as we can, and we'll keep everybody informed.
Great. Thanks, Rachel and Karen, for that. I just want to thank all of our panelists again. I know everyone's very busy, but I appreciate folks making time to connect. Some of you were actually with us last Friday as well. You may be aware we have roundtables that happen on a quarterly basis, small business roundtable, women in business, CEO roundtables. We had our Women in Business Roundtable last Friday. It was already on the calendar. We turned it into a virtual happy hour, and those that wanted to join in did. It was a really wonderful discussion and lots of support for everyone. Our next Small Business Roundtable is actually going to be, it was scheduled already for April 1st. It'll be in the morning. Information about that's on our website and in the Chambergram as well. And we're gonna probably be scheduling these more often. So we already have another Women in Business Roundtable scheduled for Friday, April 3rd, another virtual happy hour. People seem to appreciate that time slot. So just wanna reiterate that we're all here for you. We're trying to connect with you more often, trying to connect you to each other. We're gonna see what we can do to have a format for a virtual business after hours here coming up in April. See how many people we can get on in a group together. It may or may not be Zoom, but thanks so much. And thanks, Doug, for asking that. So we've been, Doug is asking about the link to contribute to our fund that we established at the Chamber Foundation. As I'm sure most of you realize, we feel the need to be here for everyone. We feel the need to make everything that we're doing available to all of you, and also even non-members right now at no cost. But we recognize that if people don't keep sending in their member investments or paying for things, we are gonna need some support as well. So everything's on a suggested donation or if you can contribute basis. I will try to paste the link in here, but it's including everything. I was muted. Sorry, back in already muted. If anyone has ideas for resources that you think would be particularly helpful to you, feel free to submit those ideas to us. Again, we have a lot of upcoming topics that we're working on, but if there's anything that you see missing, feel free to send suggestions our way. So thanks again to the panelists. I want to let everyone hop off. We'll keep this open for a couple more minutes, and appreciate those of you who feel that you can help support our work over the next couple of months. Thank you. Jazz hands.
Thanks, guys. Just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yep, good to see you.
You too. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
so
Rachel.
much.
Thank you, Natalie. Laurie already left. Thank you for all the panelists. You guys are great.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
job.
You're
It's really-
welcome. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Wow, it's interesting watching all the tiles just disappear. I think Cynthia wins for having the best picture. It was quite a beautiful scene she had there. Oops. I guess I'm going to jump out.
Okay, I'll go ahead and end the chat. Natalie, thank you again for joining.
Natalie, before you go, I don't know if you've gotten any of the info about our board meeting in the morning. Are you on that email group yet by chance?